You need to lock in and really begin to explore what's really happening on the inside.
One spouse is having triggers and the other spouse has no understanding about what's going on, and so they think that the person's just not getting over it.
You're not hearing, you're not really paying attention to what your spouse is talking about. It's almost like Charlie Brown, wah, 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 wah.
They pour scalding, boiling hot water on your back. And you're like, ow, ow, why did you do that? And the person's just like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I was just a joke. I didn't know it was gonna burn you. And you're like, I'm burned. Imagine that person that burned you with the water saying, when are you gonna be done with these boils? Could you hurry up? Oh my God, you need help now? Bruh, you burned me. Now I'm the problem?
I've never heard an analogy as raw and as real as what you just shared. The affair ended, but your body didn't get the memo. Now a buzz, a date, or a glance can drop you to your knees. Today we're talking about triggers.
After infidelity, emotional triggers become very real. The betrayal destroys trust and completely obliterates your sense of safety. A trigger is anything that subtly reactivates the pain connected to your betrayal. It could be something small, a text that you receive at night, right? Or you turning your phone face down during the day. Maybe it's that you changed your password, right? With no reason. There are other things, many things, a certain location, a business trip, social media. There are many things, even a shift in your tone. And the thing that the unfaithful person doesn't always recognize is that a trigger is usually not about what's happening in that moment. It's about what the moment represents. If your spouse says, I'll be late, the trigger may be not about the lateness at all. It may represent the dishonesty that came with the lateness in the past. If they guard their phone, it may not be about the phone. It could be that him guarding or her guarding the phone represents hidden behavior and a lack of disclosure. And if they become distant, it may not be about them being quiet all the time. It could be that it's representing that emotional abandonment that you've experienced in the past. And this isn't intentional on the part of the hurt person. After infidelity, the nervous system becomes hypervigilant. It becomes constantly focused on the betrayal. And what happens is that the brain flips a switch that says, pay attention, alert, alert, there's danger. The term that gets more and more recognition around this is called PISD, post-infidelity stress disorder. And there are 3 expressions of PISD. The first one, and the one that you experience probably the most, is intrusion. This is when you re-experience the affair. You replay details in the mind like a movie. You become obsessive over those thoughts, and you're constantly questioning these flashbacks. Number 2 is hypervigilance, where you're always looking for something, checking the phones, watching their tone, their shifts in their energy, and scanning for danger. Number 3 is constriction or emotional numbing, where the hurt person just shuts down emotionally, avoiding intimacy or approaching sex with vigilance and numbness, not wanting to talk about the affair and disconnecting to protect themselves. And then the 4th, which is arousal and reactivity. And this is where you're just irritable and you're anxious and your sleep is disrupted and you panic suddenly and you become emotional and there's outbursts. I know you're familiar with this if you're experiencing it. And that's why many betrayed spouses may overreact and shut down. They might question everything or need constant reassurance. They're anxious or they're emotionally guarded. And the issue is that they really need to heal from those triggers. If this sounds familiar to you, the answer is really becoming aware and understanding what's happening to you. And so I want you to consider what we're about to talk about as we answer these upcoming questions. Let's get into it.
Great teaching, Danielle. Wow. Okay, let's dive into these questions. Here's the first one. Every time his phone buzzes, my stomach drops. How do I stop reacting to a sound?
Oh my goodness. My heart drops for this person because, this is involuntary behavior, right? This is not this hurt person deciding to, feel the pain in the pit of their stomach every time they hear that sound. And what needs to be understood is that this is a response of the brain. The part of the brain is called the amygdalas. There's 2 of them. And their job is to remind you of everything that is potentially dangerous, right? And so after someone experiences experiences infidelity, that trauma switch turns on, and now everything becomes potentially threatening. In this person's case, they were cheated on. And so the phone represents the potential of some invasion, right? So every time she hears the buzz or every time she hears this person get a text in the middle of the night, her stomach is dropping. Now, one thing that needs to be understood is that because this is not voluntary behavior, you can't just go turn the switch off. It doesn't work like that. It actually needs to be something where you and your spouse work together. That's the fastest way of recovery, is where the spouse literally opens up their life, complete and total transparency, and becoming aware and knowledgeable about triggers so that they can support the spouse that's having the triggers. This is the thing that happens. What happens is that one spouse is having triggers and the other spouse has no understanding about what's going on. And so they think that the person's just not getting over it, right? Mm-hmm. And so one thing that would really support this person is that the spouse would say, look, babe, here's my phone. Open up the phone, give her access to every moment that she needs so that she's not feeling like something is being kept from her. The other thing is that the truth about triggers is that each person that is triggered has to draw a circle around their own 2 feet. It's unfair, right? It seems like it's uneven and unequal that I'm the one that was betrayed on, right? And I'm the one that has to do all this work. But the truth is that if you are dealing with triggers, you're going to have to become knowledgeable about those triggers so that you know how to capture them in the moment, right? And get real about what's going on. In psychology, there's a lot of things that people do to get grounded. They sound simple, but they really do work. People, they will grab something, right? They will feel themselves in the seat, okay? They will breathe through the trigger. They will do self-talk. There's a lot of other exercises that you can do, but for me, I think the thing that works the best is when you have 2 people that understand what triggers are and how they affect the brain and all the different phases that you can go through. They're totally aware of it and they're ready for it, like a team. You should be standing back to back and waiting for the triggers for when they approach so that you can support your spouse, that actually you're the one that opened up the door to triggers in the first place. So you should be the one to hold the door of grace and forgiveness as they heal.
Yeah. It's interesting because we're talking about these phones and how they're triggers. And the fact of the matter is, this phone in and of itself is not a trigger. If I'm in an environment with 20 people and everybody's phone buzzes, I'm not triggered by that. I'm triggered by my spouse's phone, right? Because it's the relationship that phone has with the person who violated the marriage. And so it's about what the phone, it's about what the buzz represents. It represents danger. It represents the first day of the rest of my horrible life, because that was the day that the truth came out, where the conversation was revealed of what you were hiding. So this, for many people, has been a portal of deception and secrecy and lies. And so this is why it's important that we have to associate, redefine, reevaluate what the phone actually is and what the relationship that the spouse has with that phone. And as long as we can do that, we will get to the point where I'm no longer triggered by the buzz. I'm no longer triggered by you just scrolling through and texting, and I'm wondering out of insecurity, fear, and doubt what's really going on. But that takes a journey. And the triggers and the trust are the 2 things that take the longest to get through in the recovery process. Yeah. And a former unfaithful spouse has to understand that and be patient in that process.
I also think that the hurt partner needs to work on emotional intelligence, and the unfaithful partner has to work on openness and honesty. You said it's not about the phone. It really isn't. It could be anything. I remember a scenario where I went on a trip with someone who had experienced betrayal, and they saw someone in a white bikini. Okay? And they were instantly triggered. This woman was minding her business at the pool, doing her thing, but it was just the fact that this woman had a white bikini on, the similar white bikini that she found on a woman in her husband's phone, that triggered her, right? And so what happened is that she began to get aggressive. She became aggressive and started mumbling and saying things and had to control herself. And this is why emotional intelligence is important, because yes, you're triggered, but you have to know that you're triggered, and you have to have the emotional intelligence to know that you can't become aggressive with a perfect stranger who happens to be the catalyst of your trigger. The trigger can be anything, anywhere, any sound, a smell, a behavior, anything that the brain can take in as information can be a trigger. And so it is important for, like I said, this has to be a journey that the couple takes if they want success. And I think a lot of couples, they say they want success, but what's happening is that it's comfortable to be in the trigger. It gives me excuses. I can now cut up, act up, say what I want to do what I want to do because I'm triggered, right? I hear that all the time. Well, I was triggered, so I did this and that and the third. At what point do you take responsibility over your responses, right? So there's a lot to this. The phone is just one thing, right? That she's asking or he's asking about. But what about all the other things? Yeah. What about the street, the neighborhood, the town, the song, whatever it is? If you allow yourself to be overconsumed by triggers, you could be driving down the street and hear a song and start road raging, which are things that have happened, right? And put yourself in danger and other people in danger. So at the end of the day, we teach how to get a grip on your triggers. And it's really important. And most people don't know how to do that because nobody's told them that it's their responsibility, right? They're triggered now. And so this is the state that you've accepted being in, as opposed to understanding that if I don't get a grip on these triggers, this is how I'm going to experience the rest of my life.
Wow. Man, I love this conversation. You really can't exhaust this enough. This is one of the really top questions or subjects of conversation that many of our clients have. Actually, we have a call in from Victoria about triggers. Let's hear.
The affair anniversary is coming, and I'm already spiraling. How do I get through dates that haunt me?
Oh man, this right here, Danielle, this is something that every single couple has got to experience or has experienced. And unfortunately, many of them have not handled it well. It's not just about the anniversary of the day that it actually happened. So July 4th, 2024 happened to me, and now here we are a year later, and boom, it's not just about the day. Yes, the day is a problem, but it's the season leading up to the day. Because guess what? If it's in July, I'm thinking about it possibly in April. Man, 3 more months till that day, 2 more months till that day, 1 more month, 3 more weeks, and it's a countdown. And in that countdown, I'm already becoming angry and enraged or saddened and depressed. I'm not in my normal, natural self. I've lost myself. I detach myself from me, from God, from my spouse. I don't have a lease for life. I don't want to be around anyone. So oftentimes people are shifted emotionally out of a healthy space into a very unhealthy space and struggle through that process. But then comes the day. That's a horrible day within itself. And then there's the residue that happens days, weeks, and months after. All right. So you really have to have a plan, right? If I know the day is coming up, I want to redefine and reassociate what this day represents. And this is why we often encourage couples, do something different. Create a new memory so that the following year, they're not thinking about what happened 2 years ago. They're thinking about what you did the previous year, which was a celebration, which was a great trip, which was a rekindling, a renewing of the vow, something to anchor yourself into that has a healthy foundation.
Everything that you said is exactly what it needs to be. When I was 15, I walked into a convenience store with my friend, and the store owner basically starts screaming at the top of his lungs, "Get out, get out, get out." And I'm like, whoa, what's going on, right? He's talking to her. She stole in the past. She had stole and robbed this store. I don't know what she took. And I was like, I had nothing to do with it. And he said, "You get out too. You're guilty by association." That's the experience that every person that has experienced infidelity feels when it comes to locations and dates on the calendar and experiences that associate with the affair. They feel that level of trauma, that level of energy and anger and anxiety and stress, right? And so to your point, right, like I had to leave in that moment. There was nothing I could do to calm him. I couldn't say anything to him. I had to get as far away from that convenience store to calm him down. And so this is important for the unfaithful partner to understand, because I think a lot of times unfaithful partners really do think that their offended spouse is exaggerating. They think that they're doing too much. They don't understand what's the big deal, right? She's not even here. He's not even here. It's just a restaurant. It's just a park. It's just a hotel. It's just the street the hotel was on. It's just a beach. It's just the date. But it's not just the date. It's associated with one of the most catastrophic traumatic experiences that spouse has ever had. And so the only way to get above that or get around that, especially when it comes to dates, is to create new experiences that don't associate. When it comes to PTSD, a lot of times people come back from the army and they are stressed to high levels and they're just in full PTSD. And they will be told to go to places that trigger them and sit there and spend an amount of time there until it no longer triggers, right? So if you are hypervigilant and you just deal crazily with people, like you can't handle a bunch of people around you, they'll tell you to go sit in the mall with a whole bunch of people around you. Sit there in that mall and do it for 10 minutes and then stretch it to 20 minutes to an hour to 2 hours, until it no longer triggers you. And that's one really strong thing that couples can do together, right? If it's the beach, you're never going to go to a beach again, or are you going to go to a new beach and create a new experience for yourself and spend time at that beach, as much time as you can handle? The triggers may come. Let's not minimize that. Like the triggers actually might come, and you together, you and your spouse may have to deal with those triggers. But knowing that you are actually effectively working towards overcoming the trigger, that's how you become actionable. It's not about, oh, she's triggered again, or oh, he's triggered again, or go call your therapist because you're triggered again. No, investigate the trigger. What can you do to overcome the trigger? And that is the together work that needs to happen. I think the way I'm answering this question, because you did an excellent job answering it on that side of it, is the unfaithful spouse needs to really become engaged in supporting their spouse recover from those triggers.
I think the word togetherness is so important, Daniel. Think about this. There have been times when I have been sick. I'm in the bed and I'm going through physically in my body. It's a very lonely, isolating feeling because nobody else experiences what I'm going through. But in those times when you would check in those times when you would offer to make me soup, or can you give me tea, or is there anything that you can do? I felt so much comfort that even though I'm going through it alone,
somebody cares.
There was some togetherness in your support.
Uh-huh.
Now think about it when dealing with triggers. I'm not physically going through, but actually I am physically going through because of an emotional, mental struggle that I'm having. If I don't have the support or understanding of a spouse, it feels very isolating and makes my journey of healing a lot more challenging and longer in the process.
Especially if you make me the one going through the triggers that you caused the problem. If somebody decides to play a practical joke on you, right? And they come in, you're minding your business, you're on your computer, and they pour scalding, boiling hot water on your back. And you're like, ow, ow, why did you do that? And the person's just like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I was just a joke. I didn't know it was going to burn you. And you're like, I'm burned. And you're like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to burn you. And you're like, oh, let me get myself together. And you get yourself together and you're thinking they're so stupid. Why did they burn me? But I forgive them because they're just dumb. And you forgive them and you're like, cool. But the next day, your body starts to respond to the burn. Wow. The boils start to rise on your back. They're filled with fluid. You can barely walk without assistance. You can't even sit down without a cushion. It's my fault? Imagine that person that burned you with the water saying, when are you going to be done with these boils? Could you hurry up? Oh my God, you need help now? I need to help you stand up and sit down? Oh, when are you going to start complaining? Or, ew, those boils that I burned you are oozing. Yuck. Bruh, you burned me. Now I'm the problem. So this is why, to me, we've got to get the unfaithful partner on board when it comes to the recovery. I think a lot of them are coasting. I see it a lot. I think they're coasting. And from my vantage point, I see the unfaithful is, kicking their feet back and they're like, whoo, coast is clear. They forgave me. Meanwhile, the betrayed partner is doing all this work. They're not only doing physical work, dealing with the spouse that hurt them every day, still showing up as a spouse, but the mental and emotional is traumatic, what they're going through on the inside and having to do it mostly on their own.
I have never, now I've read a lot of books and watched a lot of videos on triggers, but I've never heard an analogy as raw and as real as
It's
what you
real.
just shared. And I think if that doesn't resonate with you right now, then I don't know what is. And I need it to resonate with the former unfaithful partner, because oftentimes you're not really paying attention to what your spouse is talking about. It's almost like Charlie Brown, wah, 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 wah.
Yeah.
There's no sensitivity. There's
No
no
contrition.
empathy. There's no
Nothing.
anything. And then you get mad at them because they're mad at you because of what you did to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Danielle?
And it's based on personalities too, because, different personalities handle their own issues differently, right? Like if I messed up really bad, some personalities really struggle to deal with their own faults and failures. It's really hard for them to look at that and examine that. And that's why they show up in that way. Mm-hmm. There are other people that are quick to just, I did it, I'm sorry, quick to apologize. And so, I don't want to run off the betrayed partner and make them feel like they don't have a place. But you've got to get to the point, like if you don't know how to own your stuff, if you don't know how to show up with empathy, if you don't know how to support, nobody's ever shown that to you, so you don't have it to give, all the more why you need to get into some counseling.
Yeah.
To learn that, where somebody is coaching you every day. Some people literally need that, like breadcrumbs, like first do this, open the door, say that, hug, kiss, communicate, turn to each other. Like some people need step-by-step guidance, and that's okay.
So if this conversation really hit home, listen, what we want you to do is subscribe. About 43% of our viewers are actually subscribers. So come on and join the family, hit that subscribe button. And then if you have any questions, place them in the comments section. We're always looking for great topics in order to talk about on a new episode of Marriage Intervention Podcast.
Hey, before we get into our final question, quick heads up, we're already pulling questions for our next week's episode. So if you want your question answered right here on the show, drop your question in the comments right now. We're already looking for great questions to engage in for the next show. And if you're not watching us on YouTube, you can catch every episode on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Make sure you subscribe so you never miss a show. Let's get back into it. Okay.
And that actually leads to the final question here. I got to read this. When I get triggered, my husband sighs like I'm being dramatic. How do I explain a trigger isn't a choice?
I mean, we just talked about it.
Yeah.
It's not a choice. It's something that happens in the brain. It's just like how most of us, when we come and go to work every day, we do it in an unconscious state. A lot of times you don't even remember when you pulled into the driveway. You've been doing it for 30 years. You don't remember, right? And in the same way, your brain automatically goes into defense and hypervigilance mode when there is a trauma. And it doesn't have to be infidelity. It's anything. It's anything. It could be what happened when you were a child, seeing abusive parents fight. That could really trigger people. A lot of people that can't tolerate screaming and yelling. Mm-hmm. When you get married, you don't usually talk about what are the rules for arguing? Are we allowed to yell? Can we call each other names, right? You usually find that out in the marriage. But most of the time, when you have someone who was raised in a home where the parents screamed and yelled, and then they marry somebody that screams and yells, that's triggering. They can't handle that. And so this is automatic behavior of the mind. It's not the person's fault, but it is their fault if they constantly stay in a place in a reactive space. Yeah. That dictates their life and their future, but they're not doing this to the partner. This is happening to them, actually.
And what I would say to piggyback on what you're saying and to answer the question, the unfaithful spouse has to become a student. We talk about become a student of your spouse. In this context, if your spouse's heart is bleeding and they're triggered and they're all over the place, you need to lock in and really begin to explore what's really happening on the inside. And one way you can do that is becoming a student of triggers. You've written a phenomenal book, very comprehensive book on what a trigger is and how the betrayed and the unfaithful could take a journey together to get them to a place of healing. They need to get that book because there's so many people who are ignorant and
Triggered
we can no
by betrayal.
longer use triggered by betrayal. We can no longer use ignorance as an excuse.
Right.
Like it seems like the betrayed spouse has a PhD level understanding of the trigger because they're experiencing it every single day.
Mhm.
But the unfaithful has a GED, in terms of understanding. And so there needs to be a comprehensive unpacking because you cannot have empathy for what you do not understand. And ignorance is one of the things that causes a wedge between a couple. And constantly there's this tug of war between the betrayed and the unfaithful spouse about the severity of this situation. So listen, become a student. As they say, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. All the information out there that you've ignored is because you weren't ready to show up the right way.
Great show.
Great
Topic.
This is one of those topics that I think people need to watch again and again and again and again. And I would encourage you, if you're watching right now with your spouse, sit down and have a conversation after this show.
And get the book, Triggered by Betrayal. This could be a roadmap, and it is actually a roadmap for couples to actually understand what's happening and to rebuild trust through the triggers.
Absolutely. If you're like many of our clients, you've been sitting with this betrayal for a few years, and your marriage has slowly deteriorated over that period of time because you haven't gotten the help that you need. So tuning into these shows, reading articles, watching videos, reading books, they're a good start. But in order to get you down the line of healing and recovery, you need something more. That's why we created the 3, 4, and 5-day private marriage intensive that walks you through a journey of personal healing and marital restoration. So if you're interested in finding out more, please click on the link in the description. Let's set up a free consultation to see how we can be a help to your marriage.